family bicycling has become a really, really big part of what we do at the New Wheel, much bigger than we ever imagined. It was kind of the one part of our business that honestly just wasn't on the chart at all when we opened. It just didn't really strike our mind. There were a few reasons for that. One was that the technology didn't totally exist to make it good, to make it happen. And the other was that I guess we were in college, so it was kind of out of sight, out of mind. But I think that there's been a rise in both interest and in technology that have allowed a new movement to really get cooking up here. So that is what is exciting about this. It's also amazing because it allows people who typically are really stuck in cars, namely parents, because they have cargo, to get out of cars. And so that's a little bit of what we're going to talk about the benefits and the challenges, and kind of just share some experiences. So I will introduce Claire, and oh my God, Claire, I forget your son's name. Matthew. Claire and Matthew live in Bernal Heights and have been riding an extra cycle for 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. Bought the first Bosch-powered extra cycle lot that we had, and have really been on like the full family journey with us. And Barb and Brian also live in San Francisco and ride a Risa Muller bike.
Yeah, we have a Risa Muller Load and a Benno Boost.
Cool, awesome. And are you a one kid family?
Yeah, this is our only one. It's kind of funny because I've been wanting to get an e-bike since like 2013, and having a family actually made it make sense for me.
Yeah, suddenly you had like the reason.
Yeah, well, it was just we did a cost analysis.
Okay.
And looking at like parking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we made a spreadsheet.
Well, let's tell the full story.
Okay.
Okay. So the full story is that Brian loves everything technology related, which is fine, like I love technology as well, but he's always so eager to like go out and buy something. I'm like, I don't know, like this is like a little bit more than like a normal thing that you would buy. So I was like, if we're gonna do this, let's do an actual cost analysis of what is like the fully loaded cost of owning an e-bike versus like the normal way that we would get to work, whether it's driving, taking the transit, the Muni, and what is the payback period? How long is that? So we looked at that. So Brian took up my challenge. He really wanted an e-bike, so he created this spreadsheet where do you want to tell him all the things you took into account?
Yeah. So there are 3 different ways we can get to work. One is taking the Muni train. The other is driving, and then biking. So I took into account. I tried to take into account everything from the cost of gas, the cost of insurance, the cost of parking, and not really maintenance so much, but maintenance would actually be an additional cost, both for the bike and for the car, probably more for the car. And then I looked at the commute times and how long it would take to get to work. And long story short, we bought 2 fairly expensive bikes. Over 2 years with those 2 bikes, compared to the cost of parking downtown, paying for the extra insurance because we pay by the mile on our insurance and the gas cost, it's about the same price to do either or. And additionally, it saves us, it takes about 25 minutes to get to work on our bike?
For like 35
minutes. In the car, it takes us 30 to 40 minutes to drive, but then we have to park, and then we have to walk or take the stroller out to work. And so for us, it really made sense to go for the e-bike in this case. And then taking the Muni is not really an option. It takes about anywhere from an hour and a half. And it was just
hard with the stroller.
Hard with the stroller, it's dirty, and there were some homeless people that yelled it hard, so.
Strike against me. Well, I know for you guys did, I think, some sort of similar, you made a similar choice 3 years ago. Tell us about what you were thinking back then, where you were at, and why you decided to get an e-bike.
Well, your store opened about 3 blocks from where we live.
Right.
Where we live, which kind of got our inspiration going, and it wasn't so much a cost thing, although that was clearly a factor. It was more me really missing cycling. I hadn't cycled for years, and being fed up with being in a car. Like, it's so, the traffic in San Francisco, it's such an intense thing to do. You're working all the time. And we took a while to decide to get the bike, and I wasn't even convinced that we would actually fully use it. But once I got it, I never wanted to be in the car. I was quite amazed at how total the turn was for me. Once I had the bike, I was it just feels so good. It feels so much nicer. And I was also, once we got the bike, I felt like, whereas when you're a parent, you don't really feel like you're part of, you can feel like you're not really part of life, you know, especially when you've got small kids. Once I had the bike and I was cycling around the city, I felt, even though I wasn't getting off the bike necessarily and joining in with the grown-up things, I felt like I was much more part of the rest of life. I felt much less isolated than in a car.
Yeah. That's interesting. So I just became a parent. I'm like the newbie in the house. And I bought my bike because I have the new wheel. I was inspired by my business. But I honestly wasn't 100% sure that it would be the way that I chose to get around. We don't have a car, but I was like, well, maybe I'd buy a car. I don't know. We'll just have to see. I've never been a parent. And I am now convinced that life would not be worth living if you had to drive a kid around San Francisco. Yeah. And that, having an e-bike is as good as required for just really enjoying the experience of being a parent in a creative way in San Francisco, because you do get to kind of interact with the city and you interact with your child in a really unusual way, and honestly you're just physical. It's hard to get exercise when you're a parent, because there's this kid always, so that's been really interesting to me, given me a new perspective. You guys have had your bikes for now, what, 6 months or so?
I think like 3 months.
3 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what has gone well, and what have been some kind of unforeseen challenges, or challenges that you did foresee and they've played out?
I mean, I think in general, like, the things that have gone well are small things that add up. One of the things I noticed is that on the way home from work, we'll stop in different places and kind of enjoy. We'll go to the cafe. Maybe there's this cafe called Noon All Day that we really like.
Where's that?
It's in Dog Patch, and it's on the way home. We'll stop there and get a little bit of ice cream or something, and hang out. Or we'll go out to Hunters Point. There's like a nice veranda out there that we can kind of look over the bay, and we'll have a little time just to contemplate and think. We talk on the way home to and from work, and it's way less stressful, and we save a lot of time.
You guys work in the same area?
We work about 3 blocks from each other.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And the baby's daycare is in between us.
Awesome.
That works out pretty well.
What was the question?
Unforeseen challenges or foreseen challenge?
I think the only challenge I would say right now we have is just making sure the bikes are safe if we're not parking them in our regular spot. So if we go out somewhere, we're like, okay, is this like really locked up tight? Because it's a big investment. You're like, I don't want to lose this thing after a couple of days of riding it. And so just being aware that you've locked it up, that you sort of are aware of surroundings. But otherwise, it's been fantastic. Like Brian said, stopping over, seeing different parts of the city that we've just never explored. We did a really fun weekend where we explored different parks in the city, so small parks that we would never drive to that weren't destination parks. But it was really fun to discover all the greenery that is in San Francisco, and yeah, it was really fantastic.
Flat tires are no fun with 2 kids. Although I have had my bike on the back of a tow truck. which was quite exciting.
Yeah.
That was quite exciting. But yeah, when something goes wrong,
Yeah.
and you've got 2 kids with you, then
So how do you get it fixed? Like, is there a roadside assistance that you called?
yeah,
How quickly did they come?
not quick enough.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're working on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I mean, Claire, you've been.
It wasn't.
kind of-
I don't think it was yours. I think it was for our
wasn't?
insurance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Claire has been with us through a real learning curve about what it's like to use cargo bikes in San Francisco and what kind of differences in wear and tear there are when you add a lot of weight to a bike. And so she, because of where she lives and because of the weight of her 2 sons and the hills that she descends and climbs, has had the patience and fortitude and good spirit to work with us to figure it out. And so we've been through some like total challenges.
Yeah,
Like we had
breaks,
some
a lot of
break
issues.
challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has it gotten better, would you say,
Yeah,
over the last
yeah,
few
it
years?
has.
Okay.
But it's been interesting as well. I mean, I've really enjoyed feeling like that we're early adopters and having you guys just down the road and trying to work it out and trying to be like aware of what's going on with our vehicle. It's been interesting.
Huh. What has, tell me more about that.
Just that you feel like, I'll bring it in and you'll be trying to work out what's going on, and then we have to notice, and my kids also will be out, they'll be trying to listen for where the squeak is coming, which brakes are making the noise, and what hills, and how much, it's,
Hey,
yeah.
what are the kids, like, what do they think about the bike?
They love it.
What do you think, Matthew? He's like, I'm busy.
But the cool thing is it's normal. That is the cool thing, is that it's really normal to them. And our oldest has just graduated off the bike. He's 9 and he's too big. And he's now riding his own bike. And it was a very, very simple transition because his road awareness, his traffic awareness it's just fine because he's been behind me the whole time and watching what I do. And so that's been cool.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
Is he riding at Portland?
Not quite.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, that's amazing to hear.
Yeah. One challenge is making sure that you're on safe roads. But the big thing that helped us was getting a phone holder and using Google Maps. And it's surprisingly good. Their bike, if you choose bike option, it's surprisingly good, the roads that they send you on.
Especially if you choose like Google Maps, like hilly athletic routes for e-bikes are perfect.
Yeah.
They're quiet. They're
Yeah.
awesome.
We're gonna have to try that. We've been talking about getting a phone holder.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll have to come into the shop and get that taken care of then, yeah.
No, but one of the things I noticed is that this is not really. I'm not trying to flatter you guys, but you've been really helpful with any problems we have had. So I've been able to bring the bikes in initially for like small adjustments or things. Like I got some different handlebars put on, and I felt really taken care of. So that was
That's
nice.
good. That's always the goal.
Yeah.
I think the New Wheels job is to fix problems. That's whether somebody's coming in and doesn't have a bike and has a challenging situation that they want to be able to use a bike for, or they come in with a bike and they have a problem on it. It's our job to make that experience the most positive experience it can, and honestly to elevate it, to see if we can provide things that will make it better in one way or another. And that's a constant process for all of us in the store. And we only do it well by working really closely with our customers. So if people were like, don't want to take the time to work with you, we would never be able to get where we are now with customer service and then continue to build that. I don't know. That's a fun part of the job.
Really.
I also think it's a bit of a cultural shift when you change to riding bikes, especially with a family. I mean, I've ridden bikes in San Francisco since I came here in 2012. We didn't have a car, and we biked everywhere. And in fact, when we bought our house a few years ago, we purposely bought somewhere that we could bike to, that it was flat. And then when we had our baby, we bought a car because we were like, oh, we need a car. But since then, like changing over to just primarily getting around with the bikes, it's a cultural shift. I've started seeing kind of the absurdity of cars, and I think that's a challenge because there's a bit of negativity for me that comes along with as someone who used to be like a really big car fan to now look at most cars and kind of feel like that we're kind of as a culture wasting a lot of energy. So that for me it's actually been a challenge to have that shift mentally.
Well, it's interesting. Like I've met a lot of people now, or spoken with a lot of other parents, recent parents, who are not people that I would have assumed would buy cars ever, and then they have a baby and they buy an SUV, and it's like a religion. Like everybody does it, and I'm so curious to see. I mean, I wonder what your experience is in terms of conversations with other parents, and like how we start talking about what that shift really takes. Because I honestly, I don't own an SUV, so I don't know what it's like to drive those, but I can't imagine that it's a better experience than riding my load. And it's a lot more expensive and a lot more cynical for the future of our world. And so I wonder how we shift those conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to that. When we bought a car, we bought a Hyundai Santa Fe Sport, which is an SUV.
Okay.
So the reason we bought it was, I mean, there were good reasons, like it's kind of fairly fuel efficient, but I mean, we definitely felt that need to be safe on the roads, right? Because like everything's getting bigger, so you get a bigger car because, you know, everybody else has a big car. So it's a bit of a race up the scale. But, you know, now riding the load around with, you know, Julia in the car seat, so many parents have stopped us and wanted to learn more about what it's like to bike. So I think it really is word of mouth initially, normalizing that it's okay and it can be safe, if not safer, to get from place to place with a bike. You know, I wouldn't have thought that it is safer, but I feel very comfortable. I mean, there's definitely some streets where the drivers are not very respectful and they, you know, you feel a little bit uncomfortable, but for the most part, you know, it's a safe experience, and you can take routes that have a little bit more hills, that are quieter, like you said, because the power on the e-bike allows you to, you know, explore different ways of getting from point to point. So, I mean, I think having those conversations in a place like this, having them in a cafe when you pull up with your bike, when people ask you questions, you know, we've had a lot of those people being curious about what it's like and, you know, where they can learn more. And I think that's where it starts.
What is it like for you, like at school with other parents?
Well, when we started cycling, there were no other parents cycling, and each year there's got more and more. And I think people have to see you doing it, and they have to have the conversations with you, and it really takes a while of them experiencing it and seeing it, and us giving other kids rides. I mean, we bike pool a little bit.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah,
And parents are open to that?
yeah,
Neat.
yeah.
That's really cool. I wanted to open questions up as well to anybody that might have them, because that's always like keeps things interesting. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
We may have done this at the beginning because I just sat down, but can we hear what you ride today?
Yeah.
An edge runner, extra cycle.
We've got a load, Reason Mueller load with a car seat adapter and a Benno Boost 10D. We started off on the Boost because it took a while to get the load, and so we had a Yep Maxi on the back of the Boost when she was like 6 months old, but now she's primarily in the load.
And I have a load.
I really like the load. I think it's an awesome bike. It feels we've been riding all over San Francisco, you know, no problem.
Yeah, I think one of the really, really cool things about what happened to cargo bikes this year, it happened the first time with the Extra Cycle Bosch, and then we've gotten a lot more options this year, is that the quality of the cargo bikes has increased a lot. And so what you have is a bike that's really enjoyable to ride when you don't have your kids on it. And this is a key thing. A lot of parents take on a lot of like not awesome chores when you have a kid. There's like all sorts of things that you have to do. You'll never, it's crazy. Anyways, and
Like what?
and you you have to wipe bottoms and listen to crying incessantly sometimes. That's fun. But in those moments when you're alone, if you're driving some clunky, shitty e-bike, you're not taking that moment to just live a little bit more richly. And suddenly with bikes like these really awesome cargo bikes that are being developed for people to enjoy, whether they have their cargo on board or not, it's a really different tone. And so, like, the other night I was rushing somewhere and I'm all stressed out because we're having this super bicycle thing. And I just, like, dug in and got some exercise for a second. And I felt so much better when I got to my end destination. It was such a positive experience. And it's because the load is fun to ride without kids on it. The extra-cycle
I love riding
is
my bike.
really fun to ride. And that's something that I feel like we should embrace as parents. We should be like, you know what? I want to have a damn good time whether my kids are with me or not.
It's simple.
This time I actually got an e-bike. That's like the first time I remember smiling in a really long time. Is, you know, like the stress of being a new parent. I got on the bike and I was like, woo, this is what freedom feels like. And it was a really great feeling. Yeah, so I agree. It has to be fun and then safe, and then, you know, efficient, I would say, which they are.
I love riding my kids to school in really crappy weather. Because I do the school run just like anybody else, but I get out on my bike. And in the bad weather, we've got all our gear on, and we cycle out, and the rain is blowing on you, wind, and you get back, and you've been out in the weather, but you've had this weather massage for like 40 minutes. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's funny. I agree with that. Like, you know, we have the cover, so the baby stays like there's like a cover that goes over the front, and all the bikes can get a cover, so the baby's protected. And you're out there with your full rain suit on, and you're just kind of like one of the few people out there. You're kind of by yourself in the rain, and you feel like such a pioneer, you feel like very rugged.
It's a little. I used to backpack, and I backpack a little with my kids, but nowhere near what I used to do. And you get a little bit of that. I'm out in the elements. It's just me. I'm powering myself. You get a little bit of that rush that you get from that kind of.
I am so happy to hear that. I'm so excited. Here's why. I grew up in Marshall, which is out in the middle of nowhere on the coast and Highway 1. And the one thing I really truly miss about living in Marshall is that when it's stormy, you have to go out and deal with stuff that's happening on the water. And it's like an experience. You are like out in the weather and it is nature right there. And I never really thought about that for just riding a bike, but once you introduce like your family into it, it's more of an adventure, more of a really fun thing to do, and so I'm so excited to do that.
And I have gone bike packing with the bike. I've got it loaded up with the kid and all the camping gear, and we've gone to Angel Island a couple of times and China Camp and door to door or door to tent flap, just the bike.
I wanted to say on the note of having fun on the bike, like I have a really nice road bike I built up a few years ago, like really nice. Like I went all out, I bought the frame custom and everything. And I was riding a lot back then, but since I got the load, like I haven't touched that bike. Like even when I go out on solo rides, I'll take the load. I really like it. I'll go out and do trail rides. It's awesome.
We rode up, well, when I was 7 months pregnant, we rode up to the top of Mount Tam to spend the night for my birthday. And then when Ida was 4 months old, 3.5 months old, we stuck her on the front and rode up railroad grade again and spent the night at the top of Mount Tam. And there's like, it was so fun. It was such a good night.
It's inspiring.
So yeah, you should. It's so easy. It's not inspiring. It's like just go do it. It's so fun.
And we cycled here today from San Francisco, across the bridge, and we're going back on the ferry. And we had our binoculars with us, and we stopped and saw birds, and it's great. Get one. We haven't got one.
In terms of the questions, I think we covered most.
Well, I actually do have one question. We've been thinking and talking a lot about policy at the New Wheel for the last while, and I wonder, as parents, what do you think is the number one thing that is missing that would significantly increase the feasibility of both your cycling and other people that you know cycling, either with their kids or without?
Protected bike lanes.
Protected bike lanes.
I think protected bike lanes would make such a huge impact on on cycling that it'd be revolutionary.
Are we talking like protected bike lanes like in Copenhagen or just
Like just as like as good as Market or Folsom.
yeah.
At least independent bike lanes that are clearly marked, preferably with the green. I think I've been starting to go to like the Bicycle Coalition meetings, and I'm going to try to become an advocate for that. If that happens, I think it's a game changer. I think I think at that point, the logic around cycling, because I think the number one challenge really is that feeling of safety, which you can solve. But if there were protected bike lanes everywhere, you wouldn't even have to think about it.
And we're at the other end of the cargo bike journey because we have a child that's now too old to go on it. And we have, I've been thinking, does this mean we have to go back to using the car? And we're just about managing to get him on some routes on his bike, but we're certainly having to use the car more than we will. It's crazy. So more protected bike lanes that he could ride on.
Getting more people to try bikes is a big part of it as well, because if there's demand, the city will respond, right? If there's more people biking, more people advocating for more bike lanes, that will change things. And just showcasing to families that, obviously it can't solve every challenge, like commuting challenge, but it can solve a lot of them. And if it gets you out of your cars a little bit, that's a huge win, for your mental health, for enjoyment, and actually spending quality time with people that you care about.
Well, thank you all so much.
You're welcome.
Go have a good day with your kids. Thank you, Matthew, for your patience.
We're gonna get ice cream now.
Oh yeah. Where's the ice cream?
I don't know. We're gonna buy some.